2.5 years ago, as Minnesota was blessed with a flood of both federal resources and state investments. And it felt like one of those once-in-a-lifetime opportunities to come in and be on the ground floor of really launching and catapulting this new wave of opportunities. I spent 20 years before that helping run a partnership called the Clean Energy Resource Teams, and I have many of my CERTS colleagues here today, but that sort of community-based focus has really driven my entire career and the things that I think are most important in terms of energy deployment and benefit, because it's, to me, all about the actual people. So I'm excited to be here and on the panel.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Matt Varilek. I have the honor of serving in the cabinet of Governor Walz and Lieutenant Governor Flanagan as Commissioner of the Minnesota Department of Employment and Economic Development. So we are the state's primary economic and workforce development agency. We have 3 big units of programmatic areas. We have economic development, which is focused on business stuff. We have workforce development, which is about helping people advance in their careers, move up the career ladder, et cetera. And then workforce services, which relates to things like unemployment insurance, paid leave, which will launch January 1st, state services for the blind, et cetera. And in fact, I'm happy to be accompanied by several DEED colleagues today who are around the room. Can you raise your hands? I see Adeshewa there, Nate in the front, and I think some of them gave a presentation earlier today, so hopefully you did. Excellent, thank you. When I say some, I mean you. At least one, yes. So thank you for doing that. I have been in this role since June of 2023. Before that, for 6.5 years, I was based in Little Falls up in Morrison County, leading something called the Initiative Foundation, an entity focused on community and economic development that does a lot of work with DEED. Before that, I was a federal employee, worked in the Obama administration at the Small Business Administration, so let's all spare a thought for our federal colleagues. Some of whom have been riffed recently, some of whom are hoping to come back to their works, all of whom are hoping to get a paycheck eventually for the important work they do. And then the last thing I'll say, in the private sector, proud to be an alumnus of Pizza Hut, Burger King, the newspaper, but also I worked for an energy commodities brokerage back in the day, not on Wall Street, but near Wall Street, so that was back in the days of the Kyoto Protocol and sulfur dioxide allowance trading and greenhouse gas emissions trading. So excited to be here and part of this conversation. And last thing I'll say, I might have already given that caveat once, but in the last 2 months, I've had 4 events here at McNamara, which underscores when we talk internationally about how one of Minnesota's great assets is the U and all the wonderful things going on here. Upstairs, we did an event with Governor Walz announcing $31 million of small business funding. We had a MedTech 3.0 event hosted by Greater MSP here. Just last week, I was on this stage for the Minnesota Cup, which turns out to be America's largest startup competition, which we're so proud of. And now this, sitting at the right hand of Jonathan, who runs really one of our great success stories that we got to celebrate in recent weeks, right in my neck of the woods in Sartell. And so maybe you'd like to explain some of that, Jonathan.
Yeah. Thank you, Commissioner. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jonathan Rowntree, CEO at Niron Magnetics. We have developed the world's most powerful magnet technology, and we did that right here at the university back 12 years ago. So celebrating actually this week our 12th birthday. Thank you. It's been a long time coming. We haven't sold anything yet, but get ready, fasten your seatbelts, because 2 weeks ago we broke ground on our first manufacturing plant in Sartell. And very excited about that. We'll be creating almost 200 high-tech skilled jobs, hundreds of millions of investment in Minnesota. And we could have gone anywhere in the U.S. to build this factory, and we wanted to build it here, our first one in Minnesota. And so we'll probably talk about a lot of the key reasons for that here shortly. My background, you probably picked up the accent. I'm not from around here, although I'm still, been here 10 years now and getting used to some of the local terminology. You betcha. So my background is really 30 years in materials, scaling, commercializing new technology. I love to do that. It's difficult to do, particularly passionate when it's sustainability related, of which Niron is a poster child. I had the privilege to lead Niron for the last 2.5 years, where we've continued to accelerate, and excited to really, next year, really start first commercial sales and have people be able to buy Niron's products in the stores. So looking forward to that and having our first manufacturing up and running here probably in early 2027. So pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Great. Your introductions were much better than I would have read off the paper. So thank you for that. And Commissioner Varilek, I'm a Mr. Donut alum myself. So we all put in our time. I think my time at Best Buy was a little more fun, but far fewer donuts. Okay, so starting us off here, where do you see the most significant economic opportunities emerging in Minnesota? Ideally talking about within our energy sector so putting the big question on the table first here.
Maybe Jonathan, you should start.
Happy to start. I think we've all seen that energy is critical for the economy, for national security. And so, we've got to look at reshoring different parts of the energy supply chain as we work to get energy dominance, right, as the terminology being used by the current administration. So there are a lot of things that we've seen today, I think, where we see that happening. It's happening and unfolding real time, and we've got to continue to support those activities and nurture them to grow. And happy to talk about, at Niron, and there's no better place, I don't think, in the U.S. to nurture, new businesses, right, with the ecosystem that we've got here in Minnesota. So for us, for Niron, a key part of energy security is, what do you do with that energy and electricity? Well, believe it or not, 40% of the world's electricity is used to power something, to move something. Basically, if you've got electrified motion, that's what's happening with 40% of that electricity, roughly, or that power. To do that, you need magnets, and so that's the business that we're in, right, is scaling that magnet technology. Those magnets underpin all modern life. Your cell phone's got 18 magnets in it. Your car you drove today's got 75 magnet applications in it. The world really runs on permanent magnets. You just don't know it. And so having access to stable, secure, reliable supply of those magnets is going to be critical. And as you can see, even just last week, the Chinese are using this as a trade weapon, right, to basically negotiate what they want from a trade perspective with the U.S. and incidentally, the rest of the world. So this isn't just a U.S. challenge. So that's why I think energy, a lot of opportunities. We've seen a lot of that today in the catalyst activities that you have. We need to continue to nurture that and to grow those.
Well, maybe I'll build on that. I think there have been some good stories today already about some of the new startups, Nina, that you all are spurring. And I think that there's some real opportunities for manufacturing. I think Minnesota knows that we've been talking a lot about data centers and AI over the last year, and I think that that has been a big and dominant part of the conversation, because that's an opportunity that people can tangibly see as essential for global competition. But I was reading your website, I mentioned to you on my way in, and Niron's website talks about the global supply chain being vulnerable. Well, that's putting it mildly, I suspect. And I think that there's some innovations around things like ammonia and fertilizer that even as federal tax credits are shifting, there are still opportunities for some of those smaller scale deployments that happen at more of that community scale. And fertilizer is a thing that our farms need no matter what. No matter what is happening around the world, that is something that we can invest in and an opportunity that I think is there. I think Minnesota's 2040 clean electricity law is also one of the foundational pieces that is going to drive investment and opportunity. It's going to drive investment and opportunity, obviously, in scaling up clean energy, in things like battery storage and other kinds of things like that. But it's also going to need to drive innovation in terms of what are those clean, firm technologies that are going to help us reach 2040. It's also going to require innovation in how we use energy. I was delighted to sit with Alan from Steffes over lunch today, who's talking about how he just can't imagine why that technology isn't picking up, because it does exactly the stuff that we're talking about and helps us have that flexibility for the grid, where we can do heating, we can use our renewables when we have them, charge up that system, and have that system charge when we need it. And all of the kinds of technologies that are providing that flexibility are going to be huge. But we're also going to need things like grid enhancing technologies, otherwise known as GETs, that are going to help make our transmission system more flexible. We're going to need virtual power plants. All of these are things that, honestly, many of them are things that we actually just have already. I mean, it's not about designing something new, but it is about actually getting stuff deployed. It's about changing our perspective, changing a business model, and seeing that these are things that can help us do things more efficiently now and help us get the kind of generation that we need immediately and can be deployed without having to rely on as much some of the tax credits that have gone away. It is important for me to also acknowledge that it has been a time of loss. And the last couple of weeks have been really hard for a lot of folks in the federal government and federal workforce, but a lot of folks who have had grants that are being threatened to be terminated. And that is crippling to folks that have made investments and that are trying to staff up and scale up right now. But I think that's why it's all the more imperative that we do talk about all of the good things that are happening and that we celebrate the wins that we have and recognize that there is so much more opportunity on things that we know we can do and we don't have to wait.
Excellent. Well, just to add to what my colleagues have said, and I would endorse all of that, I mean, taking liberties with this question, everything uses energy, so pretty much any of the economic sectors that I would mention as being opportunities for us, I think certainly rely on this industry, some more than others. I mean, the AI thing, we keep reading now about how investments in AI infrastructure, data centers, et cetera, is accounting for a huge share of overall national economic growth. So being part of that conversation certainly is important on the infrastructure side, not to mention the conversation about how it impacts how we all do our work on a daily basis. And we know that this can be a sensitive topic in any particular community. And so it is important. I mean, the way we operate at DEED is always to partner with communities and take our lead from them as opposed to bringing things that they may or may not want. It is Manufacturing Month right now, and so we see plenty of opportunity in manufacturing, and you can think broadly about what that consists of. Jonathan, I think you're a wonderful, your company's a wonderful example of that. We could include medical devices. That was a lot of what was featured when we were at Minnesota Cup just a little while ago. And in fact, as we travel the globe touting Minnesota, medical technology is one of the things that we are best known for in this state, rightly so, with Medtronic and all the research that happens here at the U, and of course Mayo Clinic, but then also all the amazing startups, including the winner of the Minnesota Cup this year, was a new technology that is a non-invasive way of monitoring a certain function of babies in their earliest days that would otherwise have to be done, I think, with a catheter or something like that. So just another example of what these technologies can do. We're also really excited at DEED about some of our investments in biomanufacturing, building things, making things from organic sources as opposed to from petroleum sources, for example. We have some funding invested into a company called Solugen, based in Marshall. They will be supplying industrial chemicals that traditionally would be made from petroleum, but instead they are able to do it from corn, essentially, from the sugar made from corn. And so the more cases in which we can substitute non-petroleum sources as an input is great. We have a large investment in a company called BioMade, which is really meant to be a catalyst for loads of innovations along those lines. And I guess just to wrap this up, the theme that I see when it comes to opportunity for Minnesota is areas where innovation is needed, cutting-edge, new solutions that our highly educated, highly qualified, and diverse workforce is equipped to solve. The reality is we are not the lowest tax state around, and if that's what you want, you can maybe go to some of our bordering states, and they have their strengths, but we have really distinct strengths when it comes to that high research capability, the high quality of our workforce, And that equips us to really shape the future, to build the future, and sell the products of the future from right here in Minnesota, and we're proud to be part of that process.
It was a big first question, wasn't it? So I want to, originally was thinking this would go to our state partners, but I really would appreciate Jonathan's input on, as we think about the shifting landscape federally, I'm sure it's been talked about all day today, where, for the Department of Commerce and for DEED, are you thinking about where the state steps in? Where do you build from what you've already been doing, or where do you see areas of focus as we start to round out 2025? And for Jonathan, I'd certainly be curious of what you're looking for in that public-private partnership as well.
Yeah, thank you. Happy to talk a little bit about this. Yeah, it has been a difficult period the last 6 months, as you've seen, the new administration and the changes from the previous administration. But we've been fortunate at Niron. We continue to have the federal support. But for us, it's also about the state support. And we have a number of critical programs. We are working closely with the commissioner and DEED on supporting our first manufacturing plant in Sartell. And that's a key part of our funding mechanisms for us to be able to secure the private equity we need. And so this model is what we've used very successfully, is to secure, whether it be state or federal funding. That's allowed us that to be a catalyst in itself to then secure the private equity funding that we need to be able to scale and grow our business. And so we intend to continue with that. The pathways in the federal side have been challenging, to say the least, but we're finding a way to navigate through that. In the meantime, the state's support becomes very important to us here as we're making these first steps here to expand and build our first manufacturing plant, as well as the state support on workforce development and continuing to develop the pipeline of talent that we will need to scale our business.
Thank you. And I mean, Jonathan, you are kind of making the point that notwithstanding whatever differences we might have with the people who are running things these days in DC, there is a need to find a way to work together, and we're certainly trying to do that. But it's difficult when the folks that you work with on a particular program in DC may have just been eliminated from their positions, or you can't reach them because of the shutdown. So we got to keep trying and doing all we can. I certainly do lament some of the changes in direction. Nevertheless, though, I think what people expect of us is to do our best to work together, and would highlight that here in Minnesota, as the governor has highlighted as well, in what you could argue is like the most closely divided legislature you could have, nearly, with one body tied and one body of the legislature having only a one-vote margin. After very difficult, lengthy, overtime negotiations, Republicans and Democrats did reach a budget deal that helps to solve a lot of problems over the horizon in Minnesota. So it can be done. Given where we are with changes at the federal level, I will admit part of what we're trying to do is just to maintain certain things and to avoid even further disruption. And that's true when it comes to some programs that have a federal component. Also, we talk about federal funding of some state programs, and I think there's maybe a sense in which we need to be ashamed that something at our department is federally funded. You could also look at it as the federal government is outsourcing to us, so that we're doing a service for Minnesotans that the federal government is not equipped to do. And likewise, the governor also reminds us that we are a net payer to the feds, and so those are Minnesota tax dollars that we're trying to put to work. Okay, so having said that, we're trying to maintain services as much as we can. We see a ton of disruption, of course, on the international trade landscape, and Nate here in the front works in the Minnesota Trade Office, so I know he's tracking all that disruption very closely. That's difficult. But whatever the international trade regime may be on a given day, we don't control it. What we can control, though, is communicating with partners abroad and also here in Minnesota, but to say that we still want to conduct international commerce as much as possible, and we see a lot of desire to do business with folks that share similar values. And so when we go abroad to Ireland, as we did recently, we were talking with partners there about sustainable aviation fuels because they care about climate change and we care about climate change. We are proud of our partnership with the Canadian company. Helene is how I say it, but I think it's really like Helien or something like that, although I don't speak French. But they produce solar panels at Mountain Iron and at Rogers, and we are proud to have invested in their production. So, at a time when some federal policies are taking us backwards, in my view, Minnesota is still committed to the future. And so, if we press our advantage at this time when maybe some other places are not, then hopefully we will be that much farther down the road when opportunities grow.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we have a good opportunity to press our advantage right now because we've already been starting to do tremendous levels of deployment. We already have, regulatory frameworks that are signaling to our utilities about where we need to go. I think that we have a lot of those market pulls in place. We have a new Save Energy Minnesota rebate program that's going to be launching. I mean, thermal is a place in Minnesota that we all know we need heat. And if we're going to be innovating in terms of new ways to get that, to electrify those loads, that is a huge opportunity for innovation. We've been partnering with a number of folks around a thermal energy network study, which will hopefully tee up opportunities in that space. Those, again, are sort of those market pulls to say, these are the kinds of things that we need, and we need to have technologies and models and financing to deploy in those spaces. I talked about 2023 being a big year, and it was a huge year for the Forward Fund, for the CHIPS Act, for the State Competitiveness Fund. I mean, Minnesota demonstrated that it was ready to make those investments. It also teed up the Minnesota Climate Innovation Finance Authority, or CIFA, to start off Minnesota's Green Bank, and that is yet another mechanism in terms of financing that can send those market signals that these are priorities of things that we want to invest in. States have a track record, in spite of federal ups and downs, if they make investments, when the federal money becomes available in that next cycle, they are able to take advantage of those federal investments. And Minnesota should be ready to position itself now. I think that this event is an example of great public-private partnership, and Minnesota Energy Alley investments have also been instrumental in that. Those are the kinds of things that we have to keep investing in, and that we have to invest in so that we can show that we are worthy of those private investments, and that we can help private companies show with a bit of state investment that they are worthy of those private investments, and that is a way of leveraging additional funds that aren't necessarily government funds, but are funds that then help drive that investment in Minnesota.
Thanks, everyone. I think it's overlaps quite a bit with what our next question was, sometimes we talk about that we don't move fast enough because we kind of move the fastest when there's a crisis. Or those are where real opportunities are often born. So if crisis creates opportunity, Lissa, you just mentioned some great examples of where Minnesota is already well positioned. So, Commissioner Varilek, I think the first thing that comes to mind for me is the talented workforce and the investments in workforce and the education systems. Are there other examples here of where Minnesota really could take this crisis and be ready to kind of catapult into a different pole position?
Well, yeah, if I could get us started on this. And I don't know that this is specifically just a function of the moment we're in, but also a reflection on strengths that we've had for a long time. One other U of M connection to the success of our economy, there's a guy named Dr. Miles Shaver, who is situated around here somewhere, who is the person that kind of coined the term headquarters economy. The notion that Minnesota has way more Fortune 500 companies per capita than you would expect. And he wrote literally a whole book about 10 years ago about why that is the case. And now he's just in the process of updating it. And a big part of the story is the structural diversity of our economy. Think about the fact that if you live in New York, I mean, New York has a number of great strengths. It's a wonderful city, New York City, that is. But largely concentrated in finance. Speaking of, where I used to work. But Minnesota, if you look at the 17 Fortune 500 companies, I won't try to list them all, I haven't memorized all their names, but really from a wide range of sectors, some retail, some manufacturing, some medical technology, et cetera, some agriculture, ag tech, and so forth. And that's really a unique strength for Minnesota because what you see is when, number one, we have a very large share of dual income households where in some cases, if a person gets sort of a high-powered job in a particular location, their spouse comes along and they may or may not be able to find something that is fulfilling. They might just have to settle for something that's not quite to their liking. But in our state, there is such a wide range of great options at a high level if you want a big company, or you can go into our very robust small business world as well. And so more people can find great opportunities here, and that makes Minnesota very sticky. We do struggle to recruit people here, but we don't tend to lose people as much as some other places. Now, in certain demographics we do, but especially in the professional managerial class that Dr. Shaver focuses on, and that accounts for a large share of our economic output, we tend to be very sticky. And his update shows that that has only gotten better over time in Minnesota. And so ultimately, it's about people, and so that's why at our department we are excited to have programs and resources to invest in people and help them move up the value chain so that when AI comes along, for example, it becomes not a job elimination result, but rather an opportunity for the human to maybe be augmented by the AI or to do a different job that the AI is not good at. And that's exactly what I saw when I was able to visit Polar Semiconductor a while ago. Polar is one of the companies that we were able to support through the Forward Fund that we've talked about, kind of an unprecedented tool coming out of the 2023 legislative session, so that when Minnesota companies were seeking federal dollars under the CHIPS Act, and it required non-federal matching funds, they wouldn't necessarily have had access to those matching funds in Minnesota if not for the Forward Fund. That gave us the ability to provide the matching funds along with lots of private capital so that Polar could do a $500 million expansion and to grow our capacity when it comes to advanced manufacturing of semiconductors. And as we toured that facility, we saw lots of people examining these little wafers under high magnification microscopes and looking for little flaws in there. And what we were told was eventually that job can be done by AI so that these folks that are doing that job now can do something that earns them even more money here in this facility. So that's how we hope that will ultimately work.
Yeah, from my perspective, I think we heard today and we saw some of the federal funding being potentially canceled. I think for Niron, we're fortunate. We've worked very hard to cultivate a bipartisan support for our technology. It's critical for electrification, but it's also critical for national security. It's also critical for bringing jobs back to the U.S. And so, as we work with the federal government here, we've been also working very hard with the Minnesota delegation, and it's been great to have bipartisan support. Representative McCollum has been a big supporter of Niron through our development years. We're now building our first manufacturing plant in Majority Whip Emma's district in Sartell. And so, I think wherever you can build upon the bipartisan support of the Minnesota delegation, they're also huge proponents of continuing to support and build businesses here in Minnesota. And that's been an effective tool for us to really continue to gain the, both the public and the private funding that we need to scale our business.
In the interest of time, do you want to go to the next one?
Sure.
Yeah.
Thanks. Such a great panel. Jonathan, I'd like to stick with you for a moment here and then certainly hear from our other panelists. But I think it's been really exciting to see the conversations building internationally. And again, especially talking with our trade office quite a bit of how Minnesota continues to show up as a very strong and attractive partner because of the certainty within our marketplace and because of the great technologies we're developing here. And you have a lot of international friends. So just thinking about, talking about where we're at in our international business, where are you seeing traction? Where is Niron being invited globally? And then for our state partners, where are you seeing trends or traction, international partnerships?
Yeah, happy to start on this one. So we really have opportunity across the globe to supply a magnet technology. We're heavily engaged in all regions of the world, probably the most in Europe after the US, but also in South Korea and Japan specifically. The I guess say rare earth export controls that China has put in place on the world, which is limiting magnet supply, is affecting every country in the world. And so it is interesting when you talk to those companies and you say, well, where are you from? Oh, well, we're from Minnesota. Oh, where's that? That's usually the first question. So I have to explain that, and then I explain the fantastic ecosystem that we have here. Then they get it, right? And I think we talked about it briefly, but it's not only the Fortune 500 companies that are based here that gives a rich talent pool to pull from. It's the University of Minnesota itself and the ecosystem, right? I think they were recently ranked number 4 in terms of startups. There's a great ecosystem supporting that. There's a lot of technical talent which allows companies to grow and develop, not just be born here, but grow to their teenage years. And, I think when we look internationally, then when you start to explain that, especially after people come and visit here, providing it's not in the depths of winter, they see why companies are really growing here significantly, and why they have, in many respects, a lot of respect on the world stage, as Commissioner already indicated, with a number of Fortune 500 companies based here.
Go ahead. I mean, I did skip over on the last one. I was trying to help us because I saw you look at the time. I will say that I think that at Commerce, in spite of our name, we really outsource a lot of our global platform to you all. And we love to participate in those delegations and the conversations with folks who come to visit, because not only do we think that Minnesota has things to export to the world, but we also think that we are a great hub and a place for people to experiment. I mean, one of the really nerdy things that I like to tell people is that we have 180 different electric utilities in Minnesota. And if you've talked to some of your Great River Energy cooperative friends who have helped host this, they will also tell you that once you've known one cooperative, you've known one cooperative. But I do think that is actually an essential opportunity, because you can get lots of different kinds of innovation. You can have folks that come here and you can find partners and willing adopters to try something out and do some experimentation. So as you're thinking about people who want to test out and try new technology, we're great at that. I also think that on that international scene, Minnesota is known as one of the states who has remained steadfast in its commitments to where we are headed on energy. We have a strong commitment through 2040, but we also have broader commitments on net zero by 2050. And I think it's an opportunity for Minnesota to say, we are still in the game. We are still an opportunity to do business. We have businesses here who are doing that development that can export, but we're also a great place to invest and expand in the United States.
Well, thank you. Somehow I landed 2 microphones. That's a little greedy of me. Again, I applaud the bipartisan work that you've done and that we all need to try to keep doing, but I must realistically say that the international landscape has really been upended by changes in immigration policy, changes in trade policy, and I worry about that a lot. Frankly, I mean, at the Niron event in Sartell, I was really struck by the diverse talent from all across the globe that was assembled and doing what you're doing. And it just reminds us that if we turn off that flow and we don't allow bright young undergraduates to come to the U and to make their career here and maybe accidentally fall in love with a Minnesotan and stay around their whole career, as often happens, then we're shooting ourselves in the foot. So that, I think, is not so productive. On the trade side, we're seeing right now with soybean farmers, they're very concerned, of course, that the Chinese market seems to have dried up entirely. So those are difficult. But like I said earlier, whatever the international trade regime may be, we've got to work within that. That's just sort of a given for us. And so we try to engage partners that seem to share similar values. And if I think back to when I was an economics student in my undergraduate back at Carleton down in Northfield, you would read about competitive advantage being the thing that drives international trade, and it is, but also what I've seen in more practical terms since joining this job just over 2 years ago is we see a lot of international trade when there are complementary strengths. When Ireland and Japan and the Netherlands are all concerned about sustainable aviation fuels, and we are as well, and we're all trying to figure something out, there can be mutually beneficial exchange. Or when there is a Australian company that has developed a new technology to diagnose epilepsy in the home as opposed to in a clinical setting, which has all kinds of benefits for the comfort of the patient, and if they're in a rural area, they don't have to drive to and stay in an institutional setting, really valuable, right? And so they're dominating in Australia, and they know they need to get a foothold in the American market because we are a very important market. And where are they going to go? They're going to come to Minnesota, and now they are in Rochester. And so we want to help to cultivate those kinds of connections, and so that's the kind of thing that we do when we're on those missions. And just to remind us about the purpose of the trade office that Nate works in, it is both to promote exports from Minnesota to the world and also to promote investment, foreign direct investment into Minnesota, because thousands of our fellow Minnesotans, tens of thousands, are employed by companies that have parent companies elsewhere. So for example, on this last Ireland trip that we did, we visited a company called Kerry, which is based in Ireland, but that has 4 different facilities here in Minnesota. And we thanked them for that and asked them basically what can we do to help facilitate further investment here, because we see that as mutually beneficial.
I knew we were going to have so much to talk about with this panel. I'm going to ask everybody to get out the magic 8-ball, but the more sophisticated version of that for a moment, because as we talked about, for those of you who are here for the opening session, there's a lot of short-term pivots and strategies and things to move through a year of change. But that opening panel was 2 of our big utilities and University of Minnesota and 3M. And we kept coming back to these are all folks that are moving toward a long-term destination, right? They may have short-term pivots, but the long arc is still there for them. So coming back to the panel, what does success look like in 2030 if we are able to move through again, these disruptions and change, Jonathan, and thinking about what's that look like for success for your company and for our other panelists, and thinking about where the state, obviously, has some big carbon goals. I think ending today with a little bit of that vision would be really helpful for folks to keep our chins up.
Yeah, happy to talk about that and kick us off for that topic. So our factory that we're building in Sartell, just to kind of put this in perspective a little bit, once it's fully ramped up, which will be probably in 2028, we'll be making probably over 100,000 magnets a day out of that facility. Oh. But our goal by the end of the decade is we're making 1 million magnets a day, right? So we're looking at building a 10,000-ton facility. And it's been great working with Deed to bring Plant 1 and the state support for that into being. What we're looking to do is we would love to not only take our next step here and grow up here, but really fully mature here. I mean, so we have enough room and space to do that in Sartell, but we're looking for further support to make that happen. But I'm very excited about the future for Niron. We're very well positioned here. We have tremendous customer interest. I'm just excited to be able to continue to grow and supply and meet our customers' needs over the next few years. So if you're on 4th Avenue in Sartell, please drive by. You already see the bulldozers moving dirt around.
Well, and this is so great to hear that as we talk about the state's goal of 100,000 clean energy jobs by 2030. And, the more of those you guys can keep contributing to, I think the happier everyone will be. Commissioner?
Yeah, and I'm sure there will be news about this soon, but I think I have been reading that clean energy jobs continue to grow at a faster pace than the economy as a whole, which is wonderful, both for job seekers and really for the environment and our economy, et cetera. And so in terms of what does success look like in the future, I would say it looks bigger, even more advanced, and maybe a little bit less gray. I mean, if I could wave my magic wand, we need to address the fact that we're getting older as a state, and so that is why we, I think, benefit from being a welcoming place where talent from all sorts of quarters can come here and put that talent to work and innovate and produce the solutions of the future. We were fortunate in the 2023 legislative session, which preceded me, but our partners at Explore Minnesota, which traditionally has been a tourism promotion entity, also had additional money to do marketing campaigns in surrounding states and even non-contiguous states to encourage people not just to come to Minnesota and spend a weekend looking at the leaves and visiting our great restaurants and music venues, et cetera, but to consider doing what I did, which is actually move here and make your life here. I mean, I was born in South Dakota, but my wife and I are raising our 3 kids here, and this is home. And we have so many opportunities in Minnesota that maybe some people don't know about. The population is aging, and so again, it's to our benefit when we can import new talent. Oftentimes it will be young people who are coming here for college, but we have lots of jobs available as well, and want to encourage people to tell Minnesota's story, and so that we have the talent here to produce those solutions on into the future.
Thank you, Commissioner. And I think that jobs report is expected by the end of this week, so that'll be very exciting. I think this gives you the last word. No pressure.
No pressure?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think you got it.
Yeah. One of the things that I think is exciting about this kind of moment, where it feels like a challenge, but it feels like it also is a chance to spark our creativity, is that I think we do have an opportunity right now to, in some ways, get out of our own way. We all tend to get in a bit of a rut, right? We have a business as usual, we have a way that we have always done things, or a way that we have thought about things. And I think that this is an opportunity for us to pivot and to look at the moment that is here and say, okay, well, I could try to do this in a different way. We have some other pathways, some other streams that we could navigate, and we could go in some new directions. And if we are able to do that successfully with the opportunities that we really do still have at hand, I think that by 2030, we will be well poised for another round of expansion, another round of investments, another round of digging in on the opportunities that are ahead. 2030 will be the start of a brand new decade, and a decade in which we have an amazing amount of work to do to transform our energy system to the energy system that we all want and that we all deserve. It is also an opportunity to really dig in on how do we make that expansion and also make sure that energy is affordable. Is it affordable for our lowest income households? Is affordable for the businesses who want to expand here? And is affordable for all of us to be able to feel like this is the quality of life that we have earned together? Because we actually came together in this moment to say there are new ways that we can do things. We can do them better than we have before. And there is no opportunity better than a crisis to have us focus our minds and start to dig in.
Yeah, see, you did just fine. That's. I wish I could talk to this group of people for another hour. Their time is so precious. Their expertise is so deep and wide, and their insights are so on point for this moment. As we close, and I'm once again like the thing standing between you and the next fun thing, I just want to really, from the bottom of my heart, thank everybody who made today such a great event. Obviously, our panelists offered insights and perspectives into places in the energy economy that we don't always spend our day. I'm guessing someone learned something that you weren't expecting to today, and I think that that's really magical. Again, there were 5 partners that came together to merge our events and try something new this year, and you were all part of that beautiful experiment. So thank you for your openness and patience with the event setup and logistics and programming. What I'm hedging at here is this like bigger feeling, which is these are hard times. And not because of my politics, but because people's lives are affected by the changes we experience here, right? When there are layoffs, someone's family is affected, and then there's a ripple from that family into a small town, into a community, into a state. And we have so much responsibility and stewardship to what is happening in the world today, and it can feel really deeply overwhelming. So sometimes it's just about showing up, being in this conversation, listening to the solutions we're hearing from people, walking away. Again, Jonathan, every day I see something from you all on the news, and I'm like, we're going to be okay. No, again, no pressure. Just solve all the world's problems, guys. So someone asked me today, like, what's so important about this? And it is being in this room together. You've all met the 10 people and made 10 new friends like I assigned you this morning, I assume. Otherwise, you still have a reception to go. But don't leave it here. That is the thing I just want to deeply impress. If you leave it here, we'll have failed. You have to carry something forward today. Follow up on the email with the person you grabbed a card from. Talk to and mentor the student who you were so excited to talk to today, who is worried about their future. Do something with the partnership. Make an investment in the opportunity. Be engaged going forward. Otherwise, all of this was for naught. So now I take that no pressure to all of you. But they don't have to be 50-foot leaps and bounds. They are small connections. They are small actions every day that lead to something better. And I will end with where I started this morning. I'm betting on Minnesota because of all of you. So thank you for being here today. Now, you can gather in the Heritage Room, and if you were like, oh, I got 8 new friends today, they're waiting for you in the reception.